Hey everyone, welcome. This is Jason Clemens, Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemens, DC. We are live right here from the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios in Lubbock, Texas. We're live on the radio at 98.7 Walk by Faith, 1420 AM, 987radio.com, and we're live on social media. Let me check, because last night we didn't get, for some reason, we're on it tonight. I don't know. Sometimes it just acts up and it doesn't stream. And we missed our show last night on our Facebook page, but we're live tonight. So good. Technology worked today. So while we have 3 different pages, and then Ken shares his stuff on the Walk by Faith Twitter page and on the Facebook page a lot too. So last night we covered anxiety, and we're going to get into part 2 of that tonight. That's going to be the show, and we've done it before in the past. You guys has been watching the show for a while. It's kind of stuff we've covered a lot, but I had a request to do it for a certain friend, a person that might need a little bit of this information. And so I said, hey, we'll just do it again and we'll get it on tape. And then that way I'll know exactly where it is and I can send this out to whoever needs it in the future. So that's what we're doing with tonight's show. So we're going to continue with this anxiety. You guys that watch us on our Facebook page, the Rock Health and Wellness Center's Facebook page, for some reason it didn't stream last night. So I had to share the Littlefields page, because we stream it to our Rock Health and Wellness Center's page here in Lubbock. We stream it to our Littlefield page. We stream it to YouTube, and we stream it to X. And so for some reason, there was a glitch last night. It didn't stream to the Facebook page. And so we didn't get, you guys might have missed the show. If you were looking for the show and wondering where did it go, we were here, we were doing the show, we just didn't get it to you on Facebook. So that's why I shared it. As soon as the show was over last night, I shared it, and you can go back and watch it. If you missed it, it'd be good. If you're interested in anxiety, if you're interested in post-traumatic stress or anxiety, or if you have anybody in your family that is dealing with that, then that's what the show was about last night. And that's what the show is going to be about again tonight. And I'm going to try to, I thought about it last night. I thought about the show that we did last night, and it's pretty in depth, but it's just the way my brain works. If you really want to know something, it's really funny. When people are really serious about a problem that they have, they go to the person that they trust the most. When you've got a problem, if you really, if you need something done, you really want to talk to somebody that you trust or that you think has, in-depth knowledge about whatever your problem is, right? It's all fun and games until it's not. And then when it's not, you'll go seeking some help from somebody that's serious about what they're doing. And I think that's what most of us do. And it doesn't matter if you're needing to fix your car or if you're retiling your bathroom or whatever. If you really want it, if you really want your project to be done right and you really want it to be serious, then you go look for that. And that's kind of the way that I'm built. When I explain this stuff, I explain it in a way that helps me understand it so that I can break down all of the parts to it. Because one of the things that you'll hear with anxiety is that you have a chemical imbalance. That was what I've learned that my whole life. Depression and anxiety. Every person I've ever heard go through depression and anxiety, somebody told them that they had a chemical imbalance. And it's like, that's a yes and a no at the same time. It's like, yes, you have a chemical imbalance, but you're not broken. It's like you have a chemical imbalance, but why? No one wants to say that. No one wants to say to you, especially a guy selling an anti-anxiety medication or drug. Why would someone that's selling an anti-anxiety medication want to explain to you why exactly there's a chemical imbalance? They don't want you to know that. They wouldn't want you to know that, because then you might solve your chemical imbalance. And what we talked about last night was the difference between the right side of the brain and the left side of the brain. Well, when the right side of the brain is active, remember what I'll even see if I can find that where we talked about shutting off that left side of the brain. I think it's on this slide somewhere. We basically shut down that left side of the brain when we have a traumatic experience. I can't find it exactly where that might be on here somewhere, but I don't know exactly which part of this slide it's on. But and so, yes, the chemicals inside the brain are not balanced. That's fair enough. But it's not because you're broken. It's because you're firing that right hemisphere too much. It's because God made you that way. He doesn't want you to be logical in your behavior. He doesn't want you to have a memory. He doesn't want you to think about long-term things. He doesn't want you to get along with people and all of that sort of thing if you're about to get eaten by a tiger. It's like, no, your brain is not built for that. If you're about to get eaten by a tiger, you've got a system that's built and how does the brain work? The brain works with energy. The brain works with neurotransmitters. It's chemistry. Remember we talked about adrenaline last night on the right hemisphere, and we talked about dopamine on the left hemisphere. Well, that's chemistry. And so what happens when we fire this amygdala and we get that stress response that's fired up that right amygdala? And what's happening? Well, the amygdala is sending this signal to the locus coeruleus, and the locus coeruleus is flooding the brain with adrenaline. Okay, wouldn't it be fair to say that in that particular moment that you have a chemical imbalance? You have more adrenaline than you have dopamine in that moment? Yes. It's like, of course you do. But why do you? Because it's built that way. So I've just been told that my whole life, that when I've heard people talk about anxiety and depression, that in order to sell them a drug, they'll tell them that you have a chemical imbalance. And they'll tell you as a parent that you have a child, and the reason that they have this problem is because they have a chemical imbalance. And it's like, I just don't think that's true. I think it may be true in a very, very small group of people. Very small group of people. But the likelihood that that's the case, I don't think is true, because there's been too many people get over their anxiety and depression. Then as soon as you get over your anxiety and depression, it's like, why? What happened to your chemical imbalance? It just naturally fixed itself? Yes. So you weren't broken. You just fixed you got your balance of your neurotransmitters right inside your brain, and your brain worked better. So that's kind of where we left off last night. We left off with this poster. We left off with how we get anxiety, depression, increased aging, inability to concentrate, all that sort of thing that's going on right there. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to start tonight right where we left off, and I want to continue with this line of thought. So now I want to talk about what actually physically manifests itself in your body whenever you get anxiety. Or if it's massive anxiety, we call it post-traumatic stress, right? If you get traumatized. But that to a certain extent is kind of on a scale. It's on a sliding scale. You can have anxiety about graduation this weekend. You can have anxiety about the wedding that's fixing to take place on Saturday. Getting ready for company to come to your house. That you can get anxiety about that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's traumatizing, right? You're not getting traumatized by it. You're just getting the anxiety of it. That's so. Now we know things that traumatize us. We don't have to talk about them. We all know that there are things that a person can go through that can traumatize that person, right? That's a very extreme level of this neural pathway firing that's going on, to the point where it actually trips the amygdala and blocks the cortex from shutting it off. What I want to talk about tonight is I want to talk about the rest of it. What manifests inside your body? Because if you've got anxiety, you'll know this is true. When I show it to you, you'll know that it's true. You'll be like, that's exactly right. Right? So that's where we're going with it tonight. And when you look at your nervous system, you've got a parasympathetic rest and recover, and you have a sympathetic fight or flight. And if you think about those two things, like just think about what that means. Sympathetic and parasympathetic are just words, right? Remember what we talked about before. There's 26 letters in the alphabet. You know all 26 letters. Don't be intimidated by words that you've never heard before or you don't understand. Just look at them. Para, P-A-R-A. You know all four of those letters, right? They can't trick you. So don't get caught up in the big term of it. That just came from the Latin folks and the Greek folks way back in the day. They probably were drinking and came up with all kinds of big old names, right? It doesn't have to mean anything. It just means that there's a system inside my body that kicks on whenever I'm not threatened. And there's a system inside my body that kicks on whenever I am threatened. Now think how awesome and wonderfully made that is. Like we actually have a system inside our body that will kick on if we get threatened. And it will cause physiological changes in our body. It will make our body function different. Like some of the things that it will do. You've got your pupils. If you get stressed, your pupils will dilate. Why will your pupils dilate? So they can see as much of your surrounding in your environment as possible. Remember, 40% of sensory information is coming through that eyeball. So you've got these massive pupils when you're stressed out. We'll do a pupillary light reflex. We'll shine a light in a person's eye and do a recording of it. And I've seen it now for several years. We've been doing this pupillary light reflex, right? Stressed out people, they can't contract and keep that. I did one today. The guy was fine. His pupils were big. I shined the light in his eye. His pupil went down small and just stayed there. Didn't even budge. Yeah, that nervous system is working pretty good. You shine it into a person's eye that's stressed out, and it'll close for a second, and then it'll open right back up. Why? Because that sympathetic nervous system is saying, I don't trust this environment. I don't trust what's happening right here. That pupil's going to change. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that being stressed, being threatened in some form or fashion will kick on the system that will change the eyes. It will also go through the whole thing. It'll change the heart. It'll change the lungs. It'll change the stomach acid. It'll change the way your liver functions. It'll work all through your whole body, your intestines, all those things, right? Because anything that is important for tomorrow is going to get shut off. So what are things that are important for tomorrow? Number one, digestion. Digestion is important that's a rest and recover thing. That's over here in the parasympathetic part of the nervous system. So this rest and recover part, now digestion becomes an issue. So if you've got digestive problems, in my world, we start with your brain. We don't start with Rolaids. We start with your brain because we want to make sure that we can calm that sympathetic nervous system down to get you into parasympathetic so that you can rest and recover. In order to recover, you need nutrients. So now your digestive tract will work. Your immune system will work. Your posture will work. Your reproductive system will work. That's all parasympathetic. And this is called your autonomic nervous system. And your autonomic nervous system is automatic. You're not controlling this with your cognitive function. You're not just deciding that you're going to have a sympathetic reaction or a parasympathetic reaction. It's going on inside your brain. And so that's going. Now, one of the things that is really interesting. Let me switch these over just a little bit. But one of the things that's, well, let's go through this. Your body is going to detect your external environment is either a stressor or a threat. Let's say that your external environment is a threat. And understand this, it's your individual threat. It might not be threatening to somebody else. It might not be threatening to your parents. It might not be threatening to your spouse. It might not be threatening to your boss, but it might be really threatening to you. I could guarantee you when I was playing football at Texas Tech, every quarterback meeting was like alligators being in there. There was like a tiger being in there. Every time I walked into that room with my quarterback coach, who was a tyrant, it was a threatening place for me. It was not a comfortable place for me to be in. It was a very threatening place for me to be in. I was on edge for 4 years every time I walked in that room because I was worried and threatened. And so what was happening? My body is going to detect the stimuli that represents the physical threat or toxicity or deficiency, right? And then we're going to kick in the stress response, because what's going to happen is now we're going to open the amygdala. And as soon as you open the amygdala, it's like a flower that's blooming. It just starts to open up. And all the sympathetic activities are going to increase. Your heart rate's going to go up. Your blood pressure is going to go up. You're going to increase your blood sugar. You're going to end up with a diabetes problem when you're stressed out over long periods of time. You're going to end up with a weight problem. A lot of people say, I can't lose weight. I don't understand why I can't lose weight. And they're stressed all the time. Their body is physically stressed, and so they're kicking out that blood sugar all the time. All the parasympathetic activities are going to shut off. Sex glands, sex drive, digestion, growth hormone production, cellular immunity. Think about it. Sex is not happening in a threatening situation unless it's traumatized. I'm not saying that a person doesn't get traumatized, but I'm saying that anything that's going on sexual, your estrogen, your progesterone, your testosterone, the way your cycles are working, the male problems, all kinds of issues that go on when a person is stressed out, right? And that's all going to take place as soon as you detect that environment. The adrenal glands will release the catecholamines, which is adrenaline and noradrenaline, epinephrine, norepinephrine. That's adrenaline and noradrenaline in your brain or in your body, right? And it will release glucocorticoid called cortisol. Detrimental effects. This is an article that's made a big deal in my life. Like I saw this a long time ago. I've had this on this slide for 16 years now. Detrimental effects of chronic HPA axis activity from obesity to memory deficits. And it says, increasing evidence suggests that detrimental effects of this corticoid hypersecretion, too much of it, this cortisol, occur by activation of the HPA axis in several human pathologies, including obesity, Alzheimer's, AIDS, dementia, and depression. All those, that's one of the cool things when you're really working on wellness is you can start putting sentences like that together where you actually put things like obesity, Alzheimer's, AIDS, dementia, and depression in the same sentence, because it's the mechanisms that are taking place because the body is firing the HPA axis too much, because the body is detecting that it's in an environment that's threatening to it. That's the thing, okay? It's like we don't want hypersecretion of that. These sympathetic hormones will do what? It increases your heart rate, your stroke volume, your blood pressure. You got to get this cortisol, you got to get this glucose around to your whole body. So it's going to increase your blood pressure and your heart rate so you can pump that blood really fast and get it all around the body. It's going to that stimulates the amygdala so that emotional and anxiety memories dominate during stress. And that's that rose I was just talking about. So when that starts to open up, you will start remembering every stressful event that you've ever had. It just, we've experienced this before. It just goes really quick. You just go in from one thing to the next thing to the next thing really quickly. It's like, I'm stressed out right now, and I remembered what I was stressed out about last week. And you know what? As a matter of fact, it's been going on for months now. And don't you remember 6 months ago when we had the same conversation? And it's like 3 years ago. It was like that. Y'all ever been in one of those conversations where it goes so fast, like you're in this conversation, and then you can bring up 3 years ago. It probably didn't take you 3 seconds to remember 3 years ago or 30 years ago, as far as that goes. And what's happening? That's the amygdala, and it's the amygdala opening up, and so you have these emotional anxiety memories dominate. Why would you do that? What is the benefit of you doing that? Why would God want you to remember these things? Because if you're listening to me right now, if you are listening to this show at all, you've made it through every alligator and tiger fight that you've been in your whole life. You've made it. You're still alive. You're listening to the show right now. So none of those things took you out. And God gave you this little place in your brain that if you get threatened again, it will open up to help you remember exactly how you got past all those threatening situations in the past. Like, that's actually a blessing if you really understand what the function of the amygdala is. It's not just to make your heart rate go up. It's to help you remember, if you're in a stressful situation, exactly how you got through it and however you did it. And every single person is going to get through that stressful situation on their own way. There's not a cookie cutter answer to that. You're the one that's playing these cards that are dealt to you. And you've gotten through it so far, right? But at the same time, the factual learning and the working memory and the ability to focus attention is going to stop. And why is that? Because we're talking about firing this lower right hemisphere of the brain, and attention happens in the left hemisphere. Detailed, focused attention happens in the left hemisphere. So it's if you're stressed out, you're not going to pay attention. You're going to be moving around. I don't know if I told you about the girl I sat next to in church this week. We kind of got, I didn't mean to. I sat with a seat between us, but then people came in from this side. It kind of pushed us down together. And so I sat next to this girl. She must have been, I don't know, maybe she was 22 or something. Looks like she was in college. And she was sitting right next to me. She couldn't sit still the whole time. She was fidgeting with her phone. She was fidgeting back and forth. She was looking around. She had no attention span whatsoever. And you know what's really funny? About halfway through the show, she just through church, she just reached and grabbed her chair and tried to do one of these deals where she tried to stretch out. And I was sitting right next to her, and I had my coffee. I had a coffee with me, and it had the Rock Health and Wellness Center on the cup, and I just rotated it towards her so that maybe she could see it. But when she moved her spine, she sat and she did this deal. She tried to move her spine. I was like, yes, your brain's not working. And what did your body do because your brain's not working? Your body tried to stretch and get your spine to move and fire your brain. That's what you're doing. That's what she was doing, right? All right, let's keep going. The amygdala is that's what I just said. The amygdala is going to fire the locus coeruleus. The locus coeruleus is going to release the noradrenaline. That's that whole logical behavior. Short-term memory goes away. Emotional learning, instinctive behavior kicks in. This causes the increase in the sensitivity of the sensory system when you get this increased amount of adrenaline. Okay, people that are stressed out, everything hurts. My shoulder hurts. My back hurts. My knee hurts. It's like my whole body hurts. It's like, what? Why is that? I even had a person this week tell me, she's like, have you tried this shockwave on yourself? And I said, no, I haven't tried it on myself yet. I will today because I sprained my wrist today, but I'll do it after the show. But I said, no, I haven't tried it on myself because I don't have any ailments. And she said, you don't have any part of your body that hurts? And I said, no. And she said, well, how come my body hurts all the time? And I was like, well, I mean, there's things we could talk about with that. And then she said, when I was a kid, that she was a twirler and her sister was a twirler. And she said, come to think of it, like we would do twirling workouts, and my sister's body, she never complained about her body hurting, but my body always hurt. And it's like maybe there was a level of stress, sympathetic response that was going on that increased the sensory system. And concentration is easily distracted, and the perception of both physical and emotional pain are increased. Because remember, pain's in the brain, sensory information's coming into the brain, and so we're getting all that sensory. So you're going to have an increased amount of pain. You're going to feel you're more sore when you're stressed out. Stress sharpens the signal detection system at the cost of concentration. Right? You don't need to concentrate if you're fighting a tiger or an alligator. You don't need to concentrate on anything. Just fight or run. We got to take a break. We've reached the first half of the show. So you guys on the radio, stick around with us. We'll come back. We'll finish this on the second half. So this is Life with Jason Clemens, DC, and we'll be right back. While we're waiting on the people from the radio, one of the things that if you start to look at these things and you reverse engineer them, you can start to see the picture of what's happening with a person that you're taking care of. So whenever you get stressed, then you're going to lose your concentration. So what if you just come to me and you say, I have a hard time concentrating? What, as your doctor, what would I think now, right? I would be like, okay, why is your left hemisphere not firing? What is going on in your life that's causing it? So are you stressed? And then a lot of times when we talk about stress and we talk about anxiety and depression, when we talk about the stress response, and I ask a person if they're stressed, they always think about, which is totally normal, but they always think about mental emotional stress. There's 3 types of stress. There's physical, chemical, and mental emotional. That's why when we came back on this slide right back here, it says your body is going to detect a stimulus that represents a physical threat or a toxicity and or deficiency. See, one of the things that we really don't understand is how chemicals threaten our brain. I read an article today, and our Attorney General, whatever Paxton, is getting on to General Mills about Twix and tricks. I don't know, Lucky Charms. There was an article today about he didn't want any more bad food or petroleum products in Lucky Charms, and it's like, yeah, when you eat those things that are toxic to your body, your brain is stressed out about that. You may not have any mental emotional stress at all. You may be totally fine. You may be in a comfortable situation in your life, and you may be just fine and get along with your spouse or get along with your kids or your parents or whatever your thing is. You may be just fine from a mental emotional stress standpoint, but you may be really toxic from the chemical standpoint, and you can manifest these same issues by being toxic. If you think about the toxicity part of it, and then you come back over here to our obesity, Alzheimer's, AIDS, dementia, depression, you're saying that I could be depressed because I ate too many Lucky Charms? Yes, that's what I'm saying. When you get that toxicity, you can get that depression just as easy from the chemicals as you can from something else. Let me get us back on. All right, everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemens, DC. We're talking about anxiety. We're just about through with all of the things that go on in the body that stress us out, right? So um, the locus coeruleus also acts on the hypothalamus. That's where the HPA axis kicks in, right? The hypothalamic pituitary adrenal. That system right there, the HPA axis helps regulate things such as your temperature, digestion, immune system, mood, sexuality, and energy usage. It also is a major part of the system that controls your reaction to stress, trauma, and injury. So, one of the things that we've been going through in my house for a while is hot flashes. And if you've ever experienced hot flashes in your life, that's coming from the hypothalamus that is having a problem dealing with the altered chemistry levels of estrogen and progesterone that are going because of the cycles have changed because of what's going on in the ovaries, and things have changed in 50-year-old women. And so we're not getting the same input into the hypothalamus, and so our temperature is changed. That's what happens when you get a fever. When you get a fever, now you're getting chemistry released by your white blood cells, that cytokines released by the white blood cells, that it's going to the brain, or chemokines that are going to the brain, to the hypothalamus to turn the temperature up. That's how 98.6 goes to 102, because the white blood cells are talking to the brain. Well, so is the brain. The brain itself is talking to the brain. And it's saying, what is the locus coeruleus doing? It's releasing adrenaline. When is the locus coeruleus releasing adrenaline? When it's stressed, when the brain perceives stress. When the amygdala starts to open and fire, then it tells the locus coeruleus, release that adrenaline, affect this HPA axis right there. Researchers links fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome with abnormalities in genes involved in the HPA axis. How many people have heard of that? Fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome. So what have we talked about? We talked, you get temperature, you get digestion, right? You get immune system, you get mood. Why would you be in a good, happy mood if you're stressed out? We all know that when we get stressed out, we're not as friendly with each other, right? Sexuality and energy usage. We're tired. It's like we're tired. We're just it's wearing us down. Teachers right now are tired. They got 1 week left of school. They're all coming in here this week, and they're tired. And it's like, okay, don't make any decisions this week, because in 2 weeks you're going to be so much better. School's going to be over. You're going to get a little break, and then they'll just come in here in June, and they'll just be just bright and shiny and bubbly, and they'll be looking so much different, right? You start looking at all of the things that start happening, and you can start to see what's going on inside the body. Here's the kicker with this thing. Regardless of whether you are actually experiencing an event that you perceive as stressful, like if you're actually in a stressful environment, or whether you are thinking about a past or future event you perceive as stressful, the physiological state you express is the same. What goes on in your body is the same, regardless of whether or not you're actually in a stressful event, or if you're remembering a stressful event you were in the past, or if you're worried about a stressful event you're in the future. And I always ask people that, especially when they're dealing with the past and the future. I ask them, I'm like, do you want the way you're dealing with this situation to cause Alzheimer's? How many people get Alzheimer's by choice? Not by accident, but by choice, right? They don't accidentally get all. They're just, well, man, my grandma got Alzheimer's. And it's like, I wonder if your grandma was stressed out about stuff. I'm not saying that all the way. I'm not saying that's the only reason. We've done shows on Alzheimer's, but it's like, do you want to get digestive troubles by the way that you're handling these situations? Do you want to manifest these issues that we're talking about by looking into the past and looking into the future? Or can we bring it back down to where we are right now? And then there's all kinds of things, the chronic effects of chronic cortisol. There's decreased bone density, decrease in muscle tissue, higher blood pressure, lower immunity, increased abdominal fat, which is associated with a greater amount of health problems than fat deposited in other areas of the body. That centripetal obesity, that right around your waist that you get, your arms are really skinny, your legs are really skinny, and you get this centripetal obesity. Those are all things that are signs and signals of being stressed out. So what do we do? What do you do now when if you don't want to deal with this? And the question that kind of got asked to me was, how does popping my back affect my brain? Like, why would I go to a chiropractor to help with my anxiety? I don't really understand why that is. And that is fair. Like, I totally understand why someone would ask that. Like, they really, I mean, why? Because I don't understand it. Why would you go to, don't you guys just pop backs? Right? Okay. So let's kind of switch gears just a little bit. And, well, before I get off this slide, let me just say that, let me show you this before I move along. When we had, when we looked at the development of the brain in last night's show, we looked at how it develops from bottom up, right? You get the reptilian brain, you get the mammalian brain, and you've got this emotional brain that's down here on the bottom of the brain. That's from birth to about age 12. And then from 12 to 25, you start building the top part of the brain, which is the rational part of the brain. That's where you can have a conversation with someone that's rational. We can walk them through that if they have the capacity to do that. It's really hard to rationalize with a 5-year-old. Like a 7-year-old throws a fit. It's like what can we do, right? So there are bottom up treatments and there are top down treatments, and they're different, and they're done for different reasons. You may have learned about EMDR. That's one of the things that Dr. Vanderkolk goes over in The Body Keeps the Score. It's a form of exposure. Is EMDR a form of exposure therapy? He says. Some psychologists have hypothesized that EMDR actually desensitizes people to the traumatic material and thus is related to exposure therapy. A more accurate description would be that it integrates the traumatic material. As our research showed, after EMDR, people thought of the trauma as a coherent event in the past instead of experienced sensations and images divorced from any context. So EMDR is a technique that is a bottom-up technique. Because when you're dealing, this is especially in trauma, as the continuum moves from anxiety, it moves away from anxiety and moves towards trauma. If you've had a traumatic experience and you've got that amygdala kicked on, and that amygdala is stopping that cortex from turning it off, you've got to do bottom-up things like breathe or chant, walk, move, yoga, mindfulness, touch. Those are things that we do. Rhythmical catch. That's why in our gym here at The Rock, we have green exercise, PE, like gym, like balls, bouncing balls. They're, like we used to play dodgeball with. They're a little bit bigger than that, but we have them in the gym, and they're green. And they're green for a reason. I got green ones for a reason, and we use them for rhythmical catch, or we might use them to dribble. But sometimes I'll just, if a person is really stressed out, I don't even talk to them about their stress. I just have them sit in front of me in a chair, and I get a chair, and I just play catch. And I just bounce the ball. I bounce the ball to them, and then they catch it, and then they just bounce the ball back to me, and then we just play catch. It'd be the same thing I would do if I was with a 7-year-old that was having stress. It's like, here, let's play catch. Let's just see if we can get that amygdala to just calm down just a little bit. Can we get that to calm down? Because as soon as we get the amygdala to get calm enough that it stops that switch, that it'll if you get that amygdala to calm down, then the cortex from the top is going to shut that off and kick it over to the left. The cortex already knows that the event is over. Your rational brain already knows that you're safe. And I'll just say this to you. I was like, just look around your room right now. If you're driving, please be careful. But if you're not, just look around your room. I mean, use your eyes literally and just look around where you are and ask yourself, is there anything in this room that's threatening me right now? Am I being threatened in this very moment? If you are being threatened, call 911 or send me a text and I'll call 911 for you. 806-794-0400. But if you just will look for just a second and you will look around and just pay attention to your environment, what you will see is that right now, in this second, at 6:45 on Wednesday, May 14th, at this very moment, you are not being threatened. You're not being threatened. And your rational brain knows that. Your cortex, your upper brain knows that. There's no threat in this room right now. And if you can get your amygdala in your lower brain to just calm down just a little bit, if you can just get it to calm down just enough that it stops that signal to the cortex, if it just caught, the cortex will go ahead and shut the amygdala off. And that's what Dr. Vanderkolk taught me. And it's like, look, that's what happens. And then now the brain moves across. That's what Dr. Peterson and Dr. McGilchrist taught me. You're not going to move forward until you do that in any healthy way. You'll do it in a survival way, but not in a healthy way. But so a bottom up type of thing, that's EMDR. That's one time I had a girl, and that's a patient of mine. She's been super stressed out, and all I did, and it was a little awkward, but I just sat down on the table right next to her. I put her head on my shoulder, and I just rocked back and forth. And I just kind of patted her on the shoulder. It'd be the same thing I would do if my 5-year-old was having a really tough day. I just pick him up and just pat him. Just that rhythmical, rocking type of treatment is a bottom up. It's a lower brain treatment to address that emotional brain, to get that emotional brain to calm down. And then we get into the top down control, like social engagement, walking and moving your eyes. And another one that's not on the list, but I really could put on the list, is cold therapy. That's a top-down control thing. That's why people have that, in my opinion, they have cold therapy completely confused. And we've gone over it before, but that's a top-down deal. So before, I just wanted to cover those before we moved along. And now let me just draw a few things for us before. I mean, we've got a few more minutes before because this to me is like the answer to the question: how can chiropractic help me? What do you mean that if I come see you, that my anxiety might get better? And let me just say this: I do not treat anxiety. It's not within my scope of practice to treat anxiety. I can't do that, right? What I do is I address the interference in the nervous system. The reason you have anxiety is because you have interference in your nervous system. Your nervous system is not flowing properly. It's not firing properly. That's the reason you have anxiety. Dr. Peterson would say you have an imbalance between your perception and your reality. What you perceive and what's actually happening. If your reality doesn't match what you think it should, it will create anxiety. Well, of course, because your left brain is what thinks it should, because your left brain only knows what it knows, and your right brain is dealing with the unknown, which is something else. So the left brain and the right brain are now imbalanced, and that's what chiropractic can do. That's where we can work on. That's why I may be the only one, but my friends they get tired of me talking about it. But this is the way your brain fires. Like it's that right there is like, yes, that's what we got to get. If we can get that, we can help your digestion. If we can get that, we can help your posture. We can help your back feel better. We can help your neck feel better. We can get your hand to quit going numb. We can get your digestion to work. We can get your thyroid gland to function the way it's supposed to. We can get your adrenal gland to calm down. We can get your blood sugar under control. We can get your mood to increase and have a better outlook on life. All of those things that we just talked about. We get your periods to balance themselves out or your testosterone to come back up. All of those things are things that will happen if we get that right side and left side brain firing. So how would we do that, right? What is happening? That's where we say, look, your brain is receiving 3 trillion bits of information per second. Where is it receiving it from? It's receiving it from your eyes. It's receiving it from your ears. And then it's receiving it from your body. It's receiving it from every joint. If I was to color every place green that you are receiving information into your brain, I would have to color the entire body green. Everything is going into your brain. All of this is contributing to the firing pathway in the brain. And what are we talking about? We're talking about this amygdala over here that's on this this right side that's overactive. We're stimulating that right side amygdala, which is stimulating the sympathetic nervous system. And now what are we getting? We're getting an increase in the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight. And our body's going through all of those stages that we've been talking about. That's what's happening in our body. It's like, look, we're not getting this over to the left. So what is an adjustment? How does popping my back change my brain? Because your joints in your spine are feeding into your brain. Those joints are feeding over there into the brain. And so what if those joints are not moving like they're supposed to move? What if they're not going through the full ranges of motion like they're supposed to? There's all kinds of reasons for that. There's all kinds of reasons for that. But that's what we're talking about is one thing right there. It's like, look, we've got vertebra, we've got joints along that spine, and they're firing into the brain. And when we adjust them, they just light up like a Christmas tree. It's just like, the problem is you can't see it. If we had you under functional MRI and I gave you an adjustment, your brain would light up. If I hook you up to our brain mapping and our neurofeedback that we have in our office, and I show you how your brain waves are actually functioning, and then I take the activator and I thump your spine, it changes your brain waves. That's the article we went over maybe last week or 2 weeks ago, right? About the Japanese scientists who were studying the activator, and they were using PET scans to determine the activity in the brain with the adjustment. Yes, that's factual scientific stuff. And where would we do that? How would we fire that? Here's what I really believe. I believe this. I believe that however much, I don't know the answer to this question, but this is what I believe. I believe there's a certain amount of energy that it takes to get the right brain to kick to the left. I believe that, and let's just say for whatever, I don't know electricity that well. Let's just say it takes 100 whatever hertz. I don't even know what the right unit would be. It takes 100 sets of power, volts, whatever it is. Let's just call it hertz for tonight. It takes 100 hertz for your right brain to get all the way to threshold to kick it over to the left. But what may be happening inside your brain is you may be at 70 hertz. So what is happening? You're getting the information to the right side of the brain, but you're not kicking it over to the left. So what is happening inside your brain? Your right brain is just getting revved up. You're putting your foot on the gas, and it's going from, your RPMs are starting to come up, and they're starting to climb. They're at 1,000, they're at 2,000, they're at 3,000. Your foot's still on the gas. That right brain is firing and firing and firing. And what should be happening? It should be kicking over to the left, and we should be getting out of that. But it's not happening. And so what's happening is you're getting an increased amount of stress and anxiety that's going on over here. That just keeps happening and keeps happening on that left side. And where does the adjustment come into play? The adjustment comes into play by firing your spine and now increasing the input that's going into that right side so that you can kick it over to the left. That's what I've seen for 21 years. I've actually seen it for 25 years. I've seen people come in with anxiety and depression, and then their anxiety and depression goes away. And it starts with it's physical and chemical and mental emotional. One of my patients sent me a text today. I might go over it tomorrow. But she sent me this long text about how her internist gave her some diagnosis that she had, and that's why she has diarrhea, and she's always going to have diarrhea, whatever. And then she started in with us, and she started a new eating plan, and now she's got normal bowel control. When she started working on her physical, chemical, and mental emotional stresses. And what we're going to do with this whole thing is we're going to eat well, we're going to think well, and we're going to move well. But we're going to start with moving well. We're going to get your spine to move. And then what am I going to do? I'm going to put vibration on your wrist, your elbow, and your shoulder on your left side to fire into your right brain. I'm going to get you to do exercises with your eyes. I'm going to get you to put on glasses that fire your right brain. You've seen these before. We just wore them last week or two. What is it? The right hemisphere has an affinity for green. The left hemisphere has an affinity for red. If a person needs left hemisphere stimulation, we'll put the red glasses on them. If the person needs right hemisphere stimulation, I'm going to adjust you on the left side. I'm going to adjust your atlas on the left side. I'm going to adjust your shoulder on the left side. I'm going to adjust your wrist, your elbow on the left side. Because I can increase the input into your brain on that side. We're going to go into the gym. We're going to get on the vibe plates. And we're going to use that green ball. And we're going to use these green glasses. And we're going to use lasers. And we're going to use the whiteboard and the alphabet. And all the things that are in the gym. There's all kinds of things that we can do. And you're going to get a notebook from me, and it's going to have a diet plan for you. And it's going to talk about what foods are healthy foods that are going to help your brain function properly. And we're going to get a treatment plan that's going to address your brain first. It's going to address what's going on in your brain first. And it's happened over and over and over in the 21 years, 20 plus years now that I've had a chiropractic license. I've seen this happen. A reverse cervical curve contributes to anxiety and depression. A really poor diet contributes to anxiety and depression. The inability to move your feet, like get on your feet and walk. People say, why do you have vibe plates in your gym? because it increases the input into the brain. You're not broken. I can promise you that. I don't care. I've had war veterans come back that have had massive post-traumatic stress, that have come back into the office and they've gone through the treatment programs here and have balanced out that reactive stuff, get their sleep back, get their life back, right? That's how chiropractic care helps anxiety. That's what anxiety is, as far as I know, and that's what chiropractic does to help it out. It's not just popping your back. It's about firing your nervous system properly so that your brain functions the way it's supposed to, so that we can calm down that HPA axis, so that we can calm down that amygdala, so that we can calm down that locus coeruleus, and we can get your brain to fire like it's supposed to fire. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, please send them to me. I would love to talk to you. If I can help you in any way whatsoever with this, 806-794-0400 is my number. You can send me a text. I'll personally answer the text, and I'll try to help you through whatever anxiety problem that you might have. Thanks for watching the show. I hope the last 2 nights were helpful. If you missed last night's show, please go back and watch it. Otherwise, you guys have a great evening, and we'll be back tomorrow night at 6.